Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Shut Up and Enjoy. This week, we are going to be discussing Loki episode 2 of season 2, and boy, is it a ringer. It threw back some nostalgia, it raised some questions, and some god-awful haircuts, in my opinion.
Not a fan of the hair, huh?
I mean, I am only one to speak so much as mine is thinning and receding. If you're watching the video show, you can see my very lopsided widow's peak.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll match you.
but anywho, to jump right in, I'm going to turn it over to my, once again, infallible co-host, Jedi Master Dante Howard, and to give us a recap of season 2, episode 2 of Loki. So, Dante, all you.
Well, all right. I'll take it away. Loki, season 2, episode 2, Breaking Brad. See what they did there?
Ooh.
Uh-huh.
Fancy.
Loki, Mobius, and Hunter B-15 find and capture Hunter X5 in London, 1977, on the sacred timeline. That's very important, where he lives as film actor Brad Wolf. Under interrogation, he admits to abandoning Doc's mission and reveals Sylvie's location. Meanwhile, Obi attempts to repair the loom to safely accommodate the branching timelines, but discovers he cannot access it without help from the missing Miss Minutes or He Who Remains aura. Loki, Mobius, and Wolf travel to Oklahoma and find Sylvie working in McDonald's. How hilarious is that? Loki tells her of their encounter in the TVA's future and asks for her assistance to figure out what would happen, but Sylvie refuses to involve herself with the organization. After Wolf proclaims the group is in mortal danger, Sylvie enchants him, forcing him to reveal Dox's plan to simultaneously destroy the branching timelines with reset charges. Sending Wolf back into custody, Loki, Mobius, and Sylvie capture Dox, but her plan has largely succeeded and some of her allies have escaped. As TVA receptionist Casey tracks down the rogue Ravonna Renslayer's temp pad on one of the remaining branching timelines, Sylvie, refusing to be involved any further, returns to McDonald's with He Who Remains temp pad in her possession. A lot going on right there.
So there is a lot to unpack there. So this episode from the start, we pick up with the TVA kind of crumbling around us. There's big issue, le big sad. The TVA is le big sad, and it's interesting that it's all crumbling apart, not entirely necessarily from the murder of He Who Remains, but also tied to that, but not as impactful as I had thought.
Mhm.
And it's more tied to Sylvie's character than I thought, which is an interesting play for Marvel, where while they're trying to build more of a love of Tom Hiddleston's Loki, are yet focusing on another variant.
Right. And I think that's actually good, because the title of the show is Loki, but it doesn't necessarily mean the Loki that
It doesn't mean our Loki. It doesn't mean sacred
right.
timeline Loki.
Right. So that is good. And one thing that was interesting how the show started, it's the episode started in total chaos. It started with Loki and Mobius coming out of the what the hell do you call that thing? Their little door thing.
Oh, a time variant door.
Yeah. And they were right there in the action. So it almost hit from, and it was a stark contrast to the way that episode 1 ended. So it was kind of like, hey, did we miss something here? Or what's happening? But they were right there, right in the action, right in 1977 with Brad, and then we just rolled from there. So that was
it opened with Brad Wolf's like Hollywood red carpet ride, like
Yeah.
almost outside like a theater premiere of
Yeah.
him getting out of the limo and getting that bougie like three-piece tux scarf on and everything. And he was living his life. He was
Yes, it
living
was.
our best life.
Yes. And it's interesting that he was on the sacred timeline. So that means that everything
Yes.
he did was supposed to happen. So
That
very interesting that that happened.
yes, that was another interesting thing that they did post out and declare that he was on the sacred timeline versus one of the variant timelines
Mhm.
in which um they were starting to prune.
Right. Right. So he could have, had he not been captured, he could have survived and been that mega movie star and lived out his days on our sacred
Yes. Yeah.
time.
Yes. All of that happened, by the way, within the first 15 minutes of the episode.
Right. It was action packed from the beginning
Like this
all the way
this
through.
this episode had a lot to it and got very much Geneva Convention-y
Is that
to the point where it's like, I don't know how I should feel about this because yes, they exist outside space-time, so they're not tied to the Geneva Convention, but at the same,
Mhm.
it's like Anakin in the Clone Wars. How many war crimes can we commit before we get caught?
Right.
So like it is what it is. Um, but yeah, so I mean it was really cool to see that they're dragging in other more than just like B-15
Mhm.
in it because I had no real investment into the TVA as an organization in season one. In all honesty, like I I don't think they did a good job to get me to care for this organization and why it has the impact versus like Stark Industries. I care about Stark Industries because I've seen the evolution of Tony Stark and I've seen what Iron Man is to the sacred timeline. But the TVA is like, what?
I think it's on purpose because we aren't supposed to care about them because they do the dirty work of pruning all the branch timelines so that we have our main timeline, our sacred timeline. So they're just there to do a job, and that is that. So the representation of that was Mobius, someone we did care about.
But even then, like, I only cared so much about Mobius because he was in so many scenes. Like it was another one
Right.
of those it was almost like a Rogue One conundrum for me, where it was like I care about them because they are the characters that make up the movie, but at the same time, at least for Rogue One, it was like all these motherfuckers gonna die in the
Don't
end. Like
die.
how do you expect me to give a shit about Jyn Erso and Galen Erso and all and Andor if I know the end of the movie is gonna be they're all dead?
Well, the
But
key to that is on the writers and the director and the actors to make us care by giving us a good story, a good directed story, and then a well acted story. So if we get those elements, then we get that entertainment for as long as we have it, and we shut up and enjoy it. Then we can come back later
do
and have
you
podcasts and talk about it.
do you think that they've been doing that this season and with the context of season one, do you think that they've been developing a character like Mobius, someone who's completely new and irrelevant, not irrelevant, but completely new to our sacred Avengers that we've grown over the last what 15 years of Banner and Stark and Rogers and Barton and Natasha and like all of those people. Like, do you what do you think that how do you think that how good of a job do you think they've done about introducing a character like Mobius, where this his character could potentially be incredibly pivotal in the next 2, 3 phases of Marvel and
I
getting us to
tried
care about him?
I tried to keep it com- compartmentalized. I try to keep it this this character, this story is contained within this series of Loki. Understanding that this, for lack of a better term, is a branch from the main MCU. This is a little something that's outside of that. And I think they've done a good job with keeping it that way. So we don't have to keep referencing back to something from 2008. We don't have to worry about something that happened in 2016. Okay, well, this character is from that movie, which happened here and there. Sure, they'll throw in a little something for us, kind of like in this episode where they had the Kango posters in the background, so you can see that. If you saw Eternals, then you know what that poster is. By the same token, if you didn't see Eternals, that poster doesn't mean anything. It's just a poster.
Full disclosure, I
Mhm.
did not actually pick that up and see the Kingo posters in the background, and I'm just gonna fade off into the distance.
Well, there you go.
The next podcast we'll be starting is Easter eggs you've missed because you are a fuckwit. Well, now I'm
That's
going to go back and rewatch episode 2 about 100 times and do scene by scene breakdowns. I'm usually so good at that. I'm angry at myself that I didn't get that.
that's okay. That's okay. I am one of it's funny, and I have this I don't call it an issue, but a lot of times when I'm watching TV shows and films with my wife, and I'll just say, "Oh, look at them in the background," and she's just like, "Dude, why are you checking for the people in the background?" And just sometimes it's funny the faces that they're making, because and then sometimes
Because
you
we've
can
been
tell,
conditioned since
yes, yeah,
2008 to look for every Easter egg. I'm sorry, Loki put his glass down at a 45-degree angle instead of a 30-degree angle, which means we're all going to die tomorrow.
is that toast diagonal or is it straight up and down? Ooh. We're always looking for those things, right?
Some psychologists might have a field day with the fandoms.
We have a field day with the fandom. So yeah,
Honestly, we do.
yes.
But yeah, it's interesting though, because going to the background of everything, like I'm definitely second guessing a lot of what I see and wondering, like I'm this podcast and especially this series has really made me reflect on just how much I don't actually know about the Marvel universe. Like not
Mhm.
even the MCU, but like all the lore that they're pulling from. I don't really actually know these characters too well.
But I think that was is what makes it beautiful. That's what makes it enjoyable because we don't have to worry about all that stuff. We don't have to worry about if this character's uniform color is the correct color from the comic books, or
Yes.
you don't have to worry about if, well, this person that's not their character type because I've read 100 issues of that run of comics. This isn't my Kang because he's not doing X. This isn't He Who Remains because he didn't do Y. We don't need all of that.
And it's interesting though that funny that you mentioned Kang and He Who Remains, because we're now 2 episodes in We haven't seen him.
We have not. No.
So, like, if he's supposed to be the big bad going forward in this season and also launching, what are we, phase five, six,
Yes,
five and a
we
half?
are in 5 because I think Black Panther ended 4.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
are in 5. Although
So
I won't say hate. I very much dislike the whole phase stuff.
I understand the phase stuff from a project management point of view, but the way it has been twisted into an enjoyment compartmentalization, I think is to Marvel's detriment. But I understand, like,
100%. It should have been kept in house.
as project, yeah, exactly. It should have been kept in house. As project management, next 5 years, this is what we're going for. 10 years, this is what we're hitting. 15, this is what we're hitting. Like that, absolutely. Like coming from an IT background, I love my compartmentalization. Everything fits exactly where it needs to go, how it needs to go. But I think it has done a detriment to the greater culture of how this stuff is viewed.
Yes. Because the average the average fan will say phase 4 sucked. Marvel's lost it. And then they'll run through the projects and be like, okay, well, I loved Loki. I loved WandaVision. Okay, I didn't like this. But I love that, but I didn't like this. But I love that. Hated this, hated that, hated, but I like that kind of. And then once you put all 18 or 20 projects or whatever it was together, you kind of like more than you didn't. But since it was all in phase 4, which it had a lot of projects that you didn't shut up and enjoy,
It
you just
was
lump it all
it
together.
was the streaming phase.
Yes, yes.
And the way that you describe that, again, I almost hate to keep going back to this, but at the same time, I absolutely do not hate at all going back to this. Ahsoka's character development. When that Clone Wars movie came out with the Battle of Christophsis, you saw this like out of nowhere. I'm sorry, Anakin has an apprentice? The fucking what now?
Not my Anakin, not my Annie. Hell no.
Hashtag not my Annie. Like, absolutely not. Like, but then by the time season 7 of Clone Wars finished, it was this may actually be one of the best, most thought out character arcs in recent history of the sci-fi genre.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'd even put it up against like Picard and Janeway and shut up, everyone. I'm yelling at my microphone directly, you goddamn Trekkies versus Star Wars people. Yes, I am comparing Ahsoka's character arc to that of the Q episodes of Star Trek with Picard, and how you can see that now that you have the whole picture. And I think we are going to get that with phase 4. I've told you this offline, is that I think in the long run, people are going to look back and go, wow, the way that they set up phase 5 was incredible.
Right.
And
right.
I can't wait for you and I to sit back, relax with our Mai Tais, ho-hos, cocktails, margaritas, whatever your poison is on the beach, and say, see,
Told you.
we told you to shut up and enjoy.
And enjoy. That's
because
it.
you don't have the full picture of what's going on.
Yeah. And even if we go back to those earlier phases, we didn't have the full picture on that either.
but we weren't conditioned to assume that there was a bigger picture when we were
Exactly.
hitting phase 1, 2, and 3.
Exactly.
First time we were conditioned was the cutscene when you saw Thanos coming in and going, "Fine, I'll do it myself,"
Yes.
grabbing the gauntlet from Asgard. That was the tipping point
Hmm.
of, this is so much bigger than we realized, and that just blew everything. Well, it wasn't even that. It was before that, because there was that one where he like flipped around in the chair.
Yeah, and did the smile to the camera.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, and I'm sure we'll be corrected if I
Oh
am
my God.
mistaken.
You know what? Bring it. If you want to add us, fine. Come on the podcast and put your mouth where your are. Like, fine. Do it. We welcome you.
Pretty sure that that was I think the director decided to throw that in at the end. It wasn't a planned thing. It just happened. And then from that is where everything else started to spin out of. And
Mhm.
I think that same situation happened with Kang after Jonathan Majors put on his performance as He Who Remains. They'd be like, hey, we have something here that we might want to tap into and build this next big bad around. So again, a lot of things are planned, but then a lot of things aren't planned. A lot of things have to change. The whole, I mean, if you think about what Black Panther 2 was supposed to be prior to Chadwick Boseman passing away, a
I'm
lot of
still
things
not
just
over
changed.
that intro to that movie.
Yes, that was heavy. That was hard hitting.
That started incredibly heavy and did not get better.
But yeah,
Yeah, it's yeah, I'm still excited, especially coming off of this one. The fact that we haven't seen He Who Remains or Kang or any of his variants after episode 2, I think it's going to give the performance overall when we do see one of the variants. And I think the after episode, what was it, the end of season 1, we saw the preview or something of
no, it was at the
Victor
end of
Victor
Quantumania.
Timely.
Quantumania. It was the end credit scene of Quantumania is where Victor Timely showed up.
Yes. So I think once we get that introduction, it's going to be that much more. The almost the more you delay it, I think is going to give you a heavier sense of the character's presence, and because you're almost allowed to then play off of Mobius's perception of like, what's the big deal? What are you actually talking? Why do we care? Why are you so paranoid about this He Who Remains, or not the timekeepers, but one step above the timekeepers, or the end of time, like who
Right.
He Who Remains at the end of time? Like, I think the longer they delay that introduction, the more gravitas you're going to get from that introduction.
I agree. It's gonna be it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun to
It
see
is.
where they take it.
It is. It's gonna be good. I'm still very much excited. Tom Hiddleston's performance is still A+ casting
Hmm?
in my book, and I don't know how they thought to bring Owen Wilson in, but again, I'm just gonna shut up and enjoy every casting that they bring us, because
I think Marvel hasn't missed on any of the casting so far. That's one thing you can say about them. No matter what, you hate it, love it, what have you. Every person that they've casted for a role has pretty much knocked it out of the park.
Yeah. And I'm really loving Obi.
Yes.
Everyone is here for Obi. Like
Yes.
it's just Obi.
Yes. And you kind of get the sense that there's a lot more to him as opposed to just being the guy who wrote the book for the TVA.
There's some other character that he reminds me of, like the goofy idiot that nobody suspects but actually knows everything.
Everything, yeah. He's actually the big bad. Ooh.
Ooh, he is a Kang variant. Ooh, plot twist. You heard it here first, folks.
Boom.
Damn. So how many, on a scale of Ragnarok to all of them, how many Asgards would you give this episode?
How many Asgards? What's
I'm just making up these scales episode to episode as they pertain to. I think the Ahsoka series was how many Kyber crystals do you give? How many Asgards? How many realms of 0 to 9? How many realms do you give this episode?
Oh gosh, I'm going to give it 8.5 realms, almost that full 9 realms.
Almost at full 9. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Rocking and rolling.
There it's definitely coming out. It's building a story,
Yes. Yes.
which I like. And I think Disney is really good at building stories.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of their detriments overall, when you have the full picture and when you look at the full picture, one of their detriments is they're really great at storytelling, but for me sometimes the conflict isn't as great as the build or the conclusion. And that's almost where I wish they would kind of shift their focus to.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, you
what?
know the big news that came out last week that they're changing the way that they're going to be doing all of their shows now. So they're going
Yeah,
to have
they're firing everyone, and Daredevil's going through its reshoots. And
yeah.
stay tuned for next week's episode on what the hell is happening in Hollywood, brought to you by Dante and Chris.
But yes, you're right. They have had issues with quote unquote sticking the landing on the season finales of a lot of these series. But I think that also that's one of the issues that they have when the focus becomes setting up the next thing or having it tie into
They're
the next
using
thing.
this as the conflict to go from the story building to the conclusion, when they need to use this as story building, adding into getting to the conclusion.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, I mean, after all of that, I would still rate this episode an 8 to 8.5
Mm-hmm.
realms out of 9. It was a very solid episode. I'm excited to see where Loki goes. I'm glad we got some Mackers and McNuggets. And it threw me back having the McDonald's with the like almost greenhouse wing on it. Well, we don't see greenhouse restaurants anymore.
The good
Uh,
old days.
the good old days. So I definitely appreciated that attention to detail. Real quick though, before we end out, the dynamic between Sylvie and Loki in this episode, there was a lot of tension, and I thought there was a lot more resentment from Sylvie to Loki.
Yes.
And
Well,
I was expecting more resentment from Loki to Sylvie.
I think he's in love with her on on a like metaphysical level. So it's not just an infatuation. I think
Yeah.
he is deeply in love with her, and he was hurt that they got into the big fight at the end. She kicked him through the door, and then went ahead, killed He Who Remains, and led to all this nonsense. Um, I think she loves him too, and she would have wanted him to agree with her and help her since she had been through so much her whole entire life, snatched up when she was a kid, on the run for all those years, hiding out. And then she finally met up with someone who kind of sort of could see what she was going through and wanted him so much to just be agreeing with her and help her to finally end this thing, which is what she thought she was doing by killing this guy. I'm ending all this and I need you to be there with me. And he disagreed. I think that just hurt. And that's why she still has that anger or that animosity towards him.
But it still seems like there's almost too much resentment from her to him. Whereas, like, the way that played out and I get it, she was justified in her frustration of like, I'm ending the TVA, fuck this, I'm out, like,
Yeah,
I'm
we're
not
done.
dealing with this. He Who Remains is the reason I am in this position, so I am putting my machete through you. Absolutely here for it. But she was the one that ultimately pushed him away. So why is she mad at him? He should be more mad at her of like, I was there. I was like, I was with you in this and you pushed me away.
She is still mad because of what happened. So even, I mean, I guess if we sit back and look at this, we don't know how long she's been in what else? Oklahoma,
Yes.
working at this McDonald's. How long has this been? How long has she been there? You know, what kind of life does she have now? And she's thinking that, okay, I am just going to live out my life on this branch timeline, do my thing, and then looks up and here comes Loki. This motherfucker, he's back again. And he
Guess
bought
who's
Mobius.
back
And he
again.
bought this other bastard. So I
He
think
brought
all
this motherfucker. Check out this motherfucker.
and they eat my pie. God damn it.
Didn't even order a drink with his meal.
Oh man.
Check out this motherfucker. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic that they have, and I hope I hope they know what they're doing or trying to do with that relationship, because I think it could be it could be potentially a very metaphysical like analogy of like reflection of the self and how one views their own self. Um, but I also think it could just be good entertainment if they do it right. You're constantly talking to a mirrored reflection of yourself. And how is that potentially going to drive your decision making or insanity?
Time will tell. I guess we have 4 episodes to go, and we'll see how it goes. Well,
Yeah.
4 episodes for this series, and then we'll have Kang Dynasty.
Well, then everything all shit will break loose.
That's right.
But anyway, well, thank you for joining us on this episode's iteration of Shut Up and Enjoy. We do truly hope that you have been able to shut up and enjoy this review of Loki Season 2, Episode 2. And if you have any feedback, please let us know. Please reach out to us via the socials on Spotify and the YouTubes. And yeah, if you want to join in the conversation, let us know.
So we'll bring you on.
Yeah, we're looking for guests. We're looking for guests. So yeah, other than that, we will talk to you after episode 3.
Bid you adieu.
May the force be with each and every one of you.
Always.